So Parshas Zachor the Shabbos is famous for being the only Kriyas HaTorah during the year, which is widely accepted as being a mitzvah from the Torah. And we actually have a biblical obligation to hear about the remembrance and the mentioning of remembering what Amalek did to us, and the mitzvah to go ahead and commit ourselves to wiping them out. Also, this Kriyas HaTorah on Purim itself is the end of Parshas B'Shav, which is the actual episode of Amalek striking and attacking us. So it's interesting, the Mefarshim commentaries point out that there's a very striking difference in the language between the mitzvah of Parshas Zachor, that's the wording that's in there, and what it tells us after Amalek actually struck. Because in Parshas Tetzave, Hashem tells us, Timcha, as Zecher Amalek, you, Bnei Israel, you shall, as a mitzvah, wipe out any mention, any remembrance of the wicked, evil, arch enemy Amalek. But in Parshas B'Shalach, what does it say? Hashem says, write this down for all generations, that what? That, anybody? Emcha, I will blot out and erase. Emcha, I will do it. I will wipe out Amalek. Very striking. One place we're told, Hashem says, you do it. One case Hashem says, I will do it. So many of the Mefarshim, among them the Rosh, the Daskin Balei Tosos, the Chizkuni, point out that before the evil nations went ahead and struck the Beis HaMikdash, it was our mitzvah to wipe out Amalek. And in fact, Shaul, the king, was the one specifically given that mitzvah. Unfortunately, fell somewhat short in not doing the job completely. It's our mitzvah. And then, after they go ahead and they destroy Hashem's Beis HaMikdash, then Hashem says, Emcha, then I'm going to do it. Then it's on me. One explanation. Another explanation, probably very simply, I think is what we naturally would have said, is a lot of times Hashem tells us to do something. Right? Hashem tells us to do a lot of things we're supposed to do. Right? Well, what we do, is it really in our koach, our power to really do it? We do the best we can. And with Hashem's help, we're successful. So one could simply say, Hashem gives us a mitzvah, says, Timcha, you have a commandment to go and do your effort to wipe out this evil nation. But at the end of the story, it's only going to happen, Emcha, when I myself do it and complete it. And I'm going to suggest a third idea that I want to really focus on. Hashem is going to be the one who's really going to end Amalek. But we have a job to do also. Today, we don't even know who Amalek is. How do we do this mitzvah today? We can remember what they did, but how do we actually destroy Amalek? How do we remove them from the world? Kind of hard to do. But what we can do is this. Amalek, our arch enemy, who's trying to defeat us and strike us, they can only be successful at striking blows against us if we are weak, if we are vulnerable, if we don't have our shield up. The way we can destroy Amalek is by cutting the ground out in front, giving them nothing to attack, by being impervious with our righteousness and our holiness, that they can't attack us. If they try, they won't succeed. So even though we don't know who Amalek is today, we can go ahead and make ourselves impervious to our enemies by being righteous, that Amalek's blows wouldn't work. In order to know how to do that, we need to know we obviously were not impervious to the attack of Amalek, because they struck a blow. They hurt us. How were we weak? In what ways were we deficient that Amalek was able to strike a blow against us? So in that, there are also a number of explanations. Two psukim. One is the pasuk right before Amalek strikes, and one is the pasuk where they strike. And the Mefarshim, the commentaries, look at these as the keys to understanding where we were lacking, that Amalek was able to strike us. This is after Bnei Israel, the Jewish people, had complained. They complained about the water. They complained about food. They had issues with the mun. Lots of different challenges. They argued with Moshe. They argued with one another. The pasuk says, "Vayikroshim b'makom Masa u'Meriva." They call the name of that place Masa u'Meriva, Al Riv Bnei Israel, because of the quarreling of the Jewish people. Ve'al nasos lamas Hashem lemor, and they're challenging and they're testing Hashem, saying, "Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu mayin." Is Hashem in our midst, or isn't He? Then Vayavo Amalek. Amalek comes. Vayilachem Yisrael b'Refidim. And they fought with Yisrael in the place of Refidim. 3 ideas. Going in order of the words. Al Riv b'nei Israel, because of the quarreling of b'nei Israel. The Kli Yakar says the Jewish people, strife, divisiveness. And that was something Rashi points out later in the Torah. By Maimon Har Sinai, we were completely united. But until that point, all the different encampments, all the travels, there was fighting, we were not getting along, we were not unified together. And because of that, we were not resistant to the attacks of Amalek. And they were able to strike us. Because of the Riv b'nei Israel, because of our quarreling. Second, testing Hashem, saying, is Hashem in our midst or not? Rashi quotes the classic Medrash. Here Hashem is doing miracle after miracle after miracle, and what do we say? Is Hashem in our midst? We're questioning. We have doubts. Our bitachon, our trust in Hashem, is not rock solid. When our bitachon is not solid, when we have doubts and questions about Hashem, that opens the door for Amalek. And in fact, there's an idea, very frequently quoted, that the gematria of Amalek, the same numerical value of Amalek, is the numerical value of the Hebrew word, suffix, which means doubt. That's what Amalek likes to do, plant doubt. And Amalek can strike us when we're doubting Hashem. And finally, what was the name of the place? Refidim. So the Medrash says, a classic drasha, Refidim is a contraction of 2 words. Rafu Yadayim. Their hands, the Jewish people's hands were weak. In what? In Torah. We were weak. We were not strong in Torah. We were not solid and one with it. We didn't have it with us as powerfully as we should have. That would have been a tremendous shield. And we already had mitzvahs. Maimon Har Sinai hadn't happened yet, but we had mitzvahs given at Mara. We had the mitzvahs given with the Korban Pesach, and for the mitzvahs of Pesach, and we were not strong in Torah. So 3 things, different Mefarshim point to. A weakness in our achdus, unity, a weakness in our trust, believing in Hashem, and a weakness in our connection to Torah. And the way to defeat Amalek today, without knowing who they are, is to strengthen ourselves in those 3 areas. In our achdus, in our Torah, and our bitachon. The mitzvah, Parshas Zachor, it's an annual mitzvah. It's not specifically spelled out what time of the year, when one should do that annual recollection of what Amalek did. We do it now, but why? Because we have the concept of remembering what Amalek did before Purim, when Amalek is wiped out. Purim, we vanquished them. We beat the descendant of Amalek, Haman HaAgagi. And in the celebration of Purim, we see the exact same 3 things as the recipe to ward off Amalek. The way we celebrate Purim illustrates how we defeat Amalek. Achdus. There's nothing quite like the achdus of Purim, with the shalach manos that we send to all our friends and neighbors in the whole community, with the matanos lavyonim. Some point out it's really the most important of the mitzvahs to spend money on, because there's nothing like the joy of making the poor, the widows, and the orphans happy. And the simcha, the moreas, of course, we're going to see it here in the yeshiva, with the mesiba, where everyone's getting along and loving being together. The unity is incredible. What a force that is to wipe out Amalek. Of course, the famous idea of kimu v'kiblu, the fact that the Megillah says that they affirmed and accepted upon themselves, the Jews. What did they affirm and accept? Chazal say they affirmed and accepted. They affirmed what they had already accepted. The Torah they had already received at Sinai, we mentioned this a few weeks ago, they reestablished and reaccepted the Torah at the time of Purim. And every year on Purim, we have that chance to recommemorate the reacceptance of Torah, that connection to Torah. And finally, the bitachon, the knowledge of Hashem. That is certainly one of the biggest themes of Purim. The hidden hand of Hashem. How Hashem's name does not appear anywhere in the Megillah. Everything seems to be perfectly natural. And yet, what did the Jewish people do? They didn't put it down to chance, like people in this day and age will do all the time. They didn't say, we lucked out. They didn't say, wow, good thing Esther was in the right place. Good thing they made some good decisions. Good thing the Haman was such an idiot, or Achashverosh was such an idiot. They didn't. They gave the credit to Hashem. They saw Hashem behind the mask. There was no, is Hashem in our midst or not? Hashem's here, He's with us, He's protecting us. Those 3 things about the celebration of Purim are the way we defeat Amalek. Let's remember that this Purim, to have a wonderful, wonderful Purim with joy and simcha, and also tremendous reyus, friendship together, tremendous connection to Torah, and tremendous trust and knowledge that Hashem is protecting us.
Good.